same thing about the radio. People said the same thing about TV, this amazing television.
I was recently invited to Berlin with a view to displaying what is by far the most important part of my collection of rock memorabilia. And I thought I'd take the opportunity while I was there, I had a couple of days, to make it also a pilgrimage, because it was in Berlin where I actually was gifted this piece of memorabilia.
This is a remarkable find. How did you come across the lighter?
Well, I'd like to point out it's not really a find, it was more fate. I was on a college trip to Berlin in November 1989. I didn't know anybody, and I ended up hanging out with, as they'd say, these kind of posh kids who referred to themselves as grungers. And they wanted to go to this gig, which turned out to be Nirvana and Tad, playing at this club that was called Ecstasy. So I went along with them. They were all in their kind of like mohair jumpers and ripped jeans, big plaid shirts and long hair. I was still dressed very much like a towny kind of kid. I had my jumper was tucked in. So I didn't really look the part. But I went to this tiny music venue with them, and when Nirvana played, halfway through the set, Kurt Cobain's guitar amp blew up. As he waited for a roadie to fix the amp, he lit a cigarette. I was he was stood centre stage, I was stood sort of in the middle, but towards the back. When he lit the cigarette, he tossed the lighter into the audience. And it was lit by the stage lights. And it came straight towards me. I didn't even move, I just put my arm up like this, and it went straight like this, straight into my palm. So the idea that I found it is wrong. To me, it's more of an Arthurian, like the sword being thrown into the lake. It was almost like, it was like the passing of a baton, and I was the catcher. And I really thought nothing more of it, until the band started to get bigger. You know, within a year or 2 years, Nirvana became huge. And I didn't smoke then. I only started smoking when I was like 22, so it's 2 or 3 years later. And when I started smoking, I used, quite naturally, used the Cobain lighter. Mm. And something changed in me. I was very sort of humble and very shy, really, before I started smoking with the lighter. And then I became a rebel.
I was thinking, I mean, would it have been an even more authentic experience if you'd have caught a syringe from Kurt Cobain rather than just a lighter?
Well, it's improbable, because he might have used the syringe at that point. I'm not absolutely sure, but obviously I wouldn't want to put my hand up with a syringe flying through the air and, like, you know, caught it. Especially in the 80s, they hid and everything. So if it had been a syringe, I'd probably kept my hand firmly in my pocket and sort of moved out of the way, in which case my whole life would have been quite different. But I didn't. I caught the lighter, and I became a kind of different character.
But don't you almost think actually catching a lighter 20 odd years on has more significance, given the way that smoking nowadays is almost more of a rebellious act than taking heroin?
Well, it's a good point. I mean, the thing is with heroin use that we see junkies on every street corner now, in any city. You see, and nobody pays any attention. They're passé. Cigarette smokers, lighter users, they've become almost outcasts. Possibly the second most valuable thing I have in my collection is it's a plug adapter, which is a US to EU plug adapter, which belonged to Marty Rev from Suicide. I don't need to spell out the significance of that, really.
That's almost like holding the beginnings of electronic music in the palm of your hand.
But it's funny, I mean, you can feel actually the power through it, you know. And obviously, you think about Dream Baby Dream, that was played through, you know, played literally through this plug adapter, you know. So it's an important object. I mean, can you imagine Suicide trying to tour Europe without it? What would there be? There'd be an acoustic band.
Was sonst? Ich habe jetzt nichts Auffälliges mehr im Kopf, aber das ist jetzt auch schon wieder dran.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah?
I'm looking for a place called Ecstasy, a music venue called Ecstasy.
Ecstasy.
Yeah, it's around here somewhere, I think.
What's
It's like a bands play there.
so Deutsch?
Nirvana played there, 1989.
Nirvana.
Yes. You know Nirvana? Kurt Cobain? Nirvana?
Sorry.
Never mind.
Ich würde mal einen Taxifahrer fragen. Tschüss.
Do you have any of your collection with you?
Well, I was thinking you might ask to see something, so I decided to bring what is the third most important piece from my collection, yeah. You know much about Led Zeppelin?
I do, yes.
You know Peter Grant, the manager?
Big fella.
Yeah. Well, I've got his calculator. This was his very last calculator.
Fantastic. So
You see, it's well thumbed.
It is very well thumbed. Lots of money went through this.
Well, millions. I mean, lots of it would have been cash in bags for Peter Grant, I guess, and God knows what. But that's his, it's solar powered. So obviously, with a rock band, I guess it's quite difficult to use on a night. So I presume he did most of his calculating in the morning or outside, rather than backstage.
How did you acquire this?
This was offered to me by somebody who actually knew him, which is why I bought it. Because again, the problem with rock memorabilia is you get all sorts of nutters saying, "Oh, I've got Johnny Thunder's toilet roll or whatever," and you know, you don't know who they are. But this guy, he proved to me that he did know Peter Grant. He actually worked for him at one point.
It's got his initials on the back.
P. Grant, yeah. When you're buying this stuff, you've got to look for these little signs of authenticity. So if it's got somebody's name written on it, P. Grant or I. Curtis or K. Cobain, B. Marley, it's always much, you know, obviously helps if you ever want to sell it as well.
You know, it's the real deal.
It's the real thing. Not always, of course, somebody could fake P. Grant, but that's actually in his handwriting, I was told.
Amazing.
Thank you. Put it back safely.
She will be heard.
I'm looking for a place called Ecstasy, a music
Ecstasy.
club, Ecstasy.
Music
I think
Club.
it's here
Music
somewhere.
Club.
Yes, music.
Ja,
music.
das, hier lang können Sie mitkommen.
This way?
Ja,
Okay.
hier lang. Ja. Und das ist hier der Konzertsaal, ja?
This is it, yeah?
Konzertsaal.
Okay.
Okay.
It looks smaller than I remember.
Ja,
This is where the main music.
genau. Ja, richtig.
God, it's amazing. In my mind, it becomes this enormous space. You know, I have to be very careful how much I use it now because it's 27 years old, and of course, you can only light the cigarettes very quickly because the gas is almost run out, and it's a disposable lighter. I can't refill it, and once the gas has gone, I worry that my gas has gone. You know.
Kurt Cobain's gas has
Well,
gone.
Kurt's gas and my gas. I think it's unfair for you now to say it's Kurt Cobain's gas because legally it's probably my lighter, given that I've had it. Kurt died when he was 27, and I've owned the lighter for 27 years, which in itself is a nice kind of synchronicity. Which, in a way, I think there's something about that that makes me feel I can speak about it finally, you know, or you know, prepared to show it to other people because I was very secretive. I didn't used to brag about the lighter. People might try and steal it for one thing, you know. Could you just stand on the stage? Could you just here?
Ja, ja.
Yeah, turn this way. That's it. And then, like you play a guitar. That looks about. Yeah, now you're stood there, I can almost see him, you know, it looks almost as... Can you just throw this to me? Just throw... Just... No. That was the wrong place. I kind of knew it was the wrong place. I just wanted to believe it was it, really, I think. I'll keep looking.
What's your take on rock and roll more generally? Do you think it's connected to a greater, a kind of more mysterious spiritual power, a higher power?
Do you mind if I just go for a quick cigarette?
No, of course.
This thing's dries you out. It'll be 2 minutes, I'll be quick as I can.
Okay. Is he always like this?
I don't really know.
I came here to talk about the lighter, but he seems to be far more interested in himself.
Sorry about that. Right. Right, ready when you are, 1 minute.
Okay, you ready?
Sorry.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so can we come back to the lighter?
Well, the lighter and I are inseparable, really. What you normally have exhibitions in here? What, like as a club? But not going to be a club on our. So this is where it'll be. It looks really good.
Can pop music exist in a gallery?
That's a very good question. The immediate thing that springs to mind is a few years ago, Kraftwerk quite famously played at the Turbine Hall in London at the Tate Modern, a huge, big, cavernous space. And apparently it was brilliant, you know. Now, to me, that's infinitely more... I'm not a great fan of Kraftwerk, but it's infinitely more exciting than most things that you do get in art galleries, because most of it's quite boring, frankly. But I have a complex relationship with art galleries and what should and shouldn't be in an art gallery. For example, I don't think film should be allowed in art galleries. I think there should be a blanket ban on showing any kind of film in art galleries. I think film should be shown on TV or in the cinema. There's nothing more boring than watching a film in an art gallery. Similarly, I don't think sculpture should be allowed outside of an art gallery. There's nothing more boring than going to a sculpture park. Oh, shit.
We can change it. Sorry for that.
I mean, in France, you'd expect perhaps this, not in Germany. I don't know.
Will the lighter tour?
Well, this is the big thing. I mean, of course, you know, for me, my dream is that the lighter will tour, but it's been such an enormous agony, really, to get it shown in Berlin. I mean, you wouldn't think it, but there's also there's like release forms, there's customs, there's, you know, on the kind of bureaucratic level. On a technical level, there's making sure the lighter is obviously travels safely to. Because I can't just put it in my pocket, obviously, and go on EasyJet or anything. So that's an expense, making sure it's correctly packaged and sent. Then there's the building of the plinth, because of course it needs to be displayed with a plinth, and it needs security. So it's been a nightmare to get it to Berlin, but having gone through the ropes and gone through the sort of, you know, some of the legal loopholes and stuff like that, I'm now quite confident we could get it to tour. And my ambition is that it will follow the last leg of the Nirvana tour, which was in Europe. Whether we can pull in the crowds, of course, of, you know, I don't know, like 20 or 30,000 people, I think it's unlikely, but it'd be amazing just to see it back in that space. Not that it was ever in that space, but it'd be amazing to, just as a tribute to Kurt.
To reconnect.
Yeah, reconnect. Yeah. You know music?
Yeah, I love English music.
Yeah? What's up?
Like Stones, Beatles, Sex Pistols,
Oh, wow, yeah.
Thompson Twins.
Oh, right.
Simple Minds.
Oh, man. You like anything? I told you I've wandered, I must have walked 50 miles looking for this place, Ecstasy, right? But you don't know where it is. You're probably too busy watching Simple Minds, right?
I was going out. I know clubs
Yeah.
in Berlin. Yeah, of course. I'm from here.
Yeah. But from what coach?
You're West Berlin. I'm from West Berlin. But I don't know Ecstasy.
Well, this is like late 80s. What were you doing in the late 80s?
School.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It obviously didn't exist anymore. I looked online, obviously, before I set off. But the place I was looking at was actually an Indian restaurant called Nirvana. So that was a waste of about 5 hours.
Yeah.
And then I've been everywhere. I've given up.
No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't give up. Find the place.